Hey everybody, so here is our next week for history, and we're going to get into the origins of Judaism. So this is our first major religion from ancient times. Again, we're studying the antiquity of our history, so going from the dawn of man through basically the fall of the Roman Empire. So our first major religion is Judaism, and we're going to get into its origins and the people involved in its development. So first of all, vocabulary here. So we have the words covenant, Exodus, Israel, Israelite, Jerusalem, Judaism, slavery, Ten Commandments, Torah, and tradition. Well, by the way, I don't know if you noticed this. I just noticed it. I knew there was vocabulary, but I didn't realize if you click on this, the vocabulary words, that a flip card with not just those vocabulary words, but other vocabulary words in the reading pops up. So you can, if you're unsure about its meaning, you can go through here and flip the card, and covenant is an agreement or promise. Pretty cool stuff. So anyway, this is the introduction to Judaism in our workbook. So here's our preview, and this is kind of going back to, again, what we're going to be doing with the reading in our workbooks online. And first we're going to look at just to preview this information with what we already know. So the question here is, think of two historical figures who have been important in the development of the United States. List them below, then write a sentence that explains each person's contribution to this country, and then draw a symbol or visual to represent the contribution. An example is given for you below. So if we go down below here, here's the example. So the person is Alice Paul, and she led the fight for women to have the right to vote, which was finally achieved in 1920. And then they came up with the ballot box as the icon or picture to represent Alice Paul. So you need to come up with two more people and something that represents them, and of course a sentence with their contribution. So just as a side note here, folks, think about that, ladies. You didn't get the right to vote until 1920. This country was established in 1776. 1776. And not until 1920 did you get the right to vote. Yikes. But you did now, and hey, you're going places, ladies. You've taken over. Keep it up. All right, so once you finish this preview, go ahead and go to the next section. I'll actually read this introduction to what we're going to be learning about. And the next section is what we know about the ancient Israelites. So some basic, again, with lots of vocabulary here, so make sure if you don't understand the vocabulary, again, you can always click on the word, and it gives you the definition there as well. So the Torah is their sacred text, consists of the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible. Judaism and Israel, of course. So the other vocabulary words there. So read there what we know about them. There's a little video just showing basically the writing in Hebrew and how they do that. And then our question here. So identify the source that historians use to learn about the ancient Israelites. Which of these sources do you think is the most useful, and why? Again, if you're unsure about that, it's all right here. So it's kind of early. It's kind of easy to figure that out. Then the next part is to complete a timeline on the movement of the ancient Israelites from 1950 BCE to 1000 BCE. And for each of the boxed dates on the timeline below, write a brief caption describing the location and movement of the ancient Israelites around that time. Add a title for your timeline that summarizes its main idea. So here they give you the 3 times and talking about their movements, and they wanted you to add a text box, type whatever the information is there, and you can obviously move that. If you get a little run out of space here, you can always add a symbol here. So you want to just throw in a arrow, help you. You got to move this around, so however that works for you to make this easy to understand that which box is describing which time frame in here. And then, of course, a title that also summarizes the main idea of what you're talking about here in this, what we know about the ancient Israelites. Awesome. Next section. So here we get into an overview of the people we're going to be learning about in this chapter about Judaism. So Abraham, Moses, and David and Solomon. And David and Solomon are basically are put together as one. They're brothers, and they are separate people, but they're kind of describing them, or in this case, you'll be describing them as kind of one person. That'll make sense here in a little bit, and I'll talk about that. Again, check for understanding. And then what they want you to do here, for each of the Jewish leaders on the matrix, describe one action that he took as a leader of the ancient Israelites and one contribution that the Torah says he made to the development of Judaism. So again, the Torah is their holy book. It's like our Bible. So Abraham, what action did he take as a leader? And the contribution to Judaism. And again, the contribution, this is based upon what you find in the Torah. And you want to do that for Abraham, Moses, David, and Solomon in this section. All right, and next section, here we get into the individuals. So now we're going to focus just on Abraham. So this is all about Abraham. Would you read that part? Check for understanding. Drag and drop. Here is the name Abraham, and this is his name in Hebrew. Now, in English, we read from left to right. In Hebrew, you read from right to left. So that should be Abraham. And then the question here is write or describe one or more important actions that were taken by Abraham. That's what you're going to type in here. And then list at least 2 contributions that the Torah says Abraham made to the development of Judaism. For each one, explain why this contribution is significant. So what it is and why it's significant. And then a quotation from the Torah that shows one of these contributions. So one of the 2 contributions, a quote from the Torah. And again, all that information is in this passage. It's all contained there for you to go and look and find that information. And the last part, an artifact of some sort. So you can use all of this, or you can just go ahead and draw it for yourself if you want to, whatever works for you. And that's what you do for those sections. That's what you're going to do for each of them. So the next one is the life of Moses, same thing. And then David and Solomon. So section 5 is both of those together. So you basically only have to pick one or use both of them together to answer these questions. Pop in there and kind of explain that. So again, there's David and there's Solomon. And again, describe one or more important actions taken by David and by Solomon. Either or. And then list 2 contributions the Torah says David and Solomon made to the development. So that's 2. So it could be 1 for David and 1 for Solomon, or 2 for David. Doesn't matter. They're putting them basically together here. So it's still just 2 contributions. And again, the same thing, a quote from the Torah about the one that you think is most important. And then, of course, a artifact that goes with either David or Solomon. So that's what you're going to be doing for those different sections. And then our last section is a summary, and that's as far as you need to go. Here's our summary of those people. Again, check for understanding. And then it lists, first, lists 1 contribution for Abraham, Moses, and then David and Solomon, made to the origin and development of Judaism. And then from that list, so once you list 1 from those 3 groups, pick 1 and why you think that's the most significant contribution. And you write a paragraph, and that's what that is going to be here for you. Awesome. And that would do it. Now, this is for this week. Next week, we're going to do an activity that is based on this chapter. So this is why it's important to read through this, understand these different people, Abraham, Moses, David, and Solomon, because next week the activity will be creating a scroll that represents this information. So that will be, this week will be the workbook pages online, and then next week will be the activity. Cool. So we're going to stretch this off into 2 weeks. So enjoy. Hope you have fun. And I look forward to talking to you next week about this actual activity. You'll enjoy it. Have a great week.